Anderson, and today we'll be going over the integumentary system. The integumentary system, also called the integument, consists of the skin and its accessory structures, such as nails, hair, and sweat and oil glands. It acts as a barrier between the body and external environment. It has many functions, which include protection, temperature regulation, vitamin D production, sensation, and excretion. The epidermis is the outermost layer of the skin. It is made up of epithelial tissue. It's separated from the dermis by a basement membrane. You can see the basement membrane right along here. The epidermis does not contain any blood vessels, but is nourished by the capillary in the dermis. Right, those you see here in the dermis. The epidermis is composed of 5 stratas or layers. The most outer strata is the strata corneum. This is the thickest layer. The next layer, which you don't see on here, would be the stratus lucidium. As dead cells leave the strata below, they form the transparent layer, which is known as stratus lucidium. This layer is only present in hairless, thick skin, which is found on the palms of your hands and the soles of the feet. The next layer down would be the stratus granulosum. In this layer, the cell organelles, including the nucleus, degenerate. Second from the bottom would be the stratus spannulosum. And the deepest layer of the epidermis is the stratus basale, also called the stratus germinativum. The stratus basale sits on the basement membrane and is also the most nourished layer of the epidermis because it is closest to the blood vessels in the dermis. Some of the stem cells here are dividing to become epithelial cells or epidermal cells, and others stay as stem cells. Back to the skin. The dermis is right below the epidermis. This layer right here. This layer right here. Epidermis, dermis. It is made of irregular connective tissues. The dermis contains nerve endings, smooth muscles, and hair follicles. You can see a hair follicle right here. Lymphatic vessels, sebaceous glands you can see right here. Sweat glands and blood vessels. You can see a bunch of blood vessels just running throughout the dermis. The dermis is consistent of 2 layers, called the polypary layer and the reticular layer. The polypary layer is named after the dermal polypi, which are upward projections towards the epidermis. These unique projections form your fingerprints. The reticular layer is the main layer of the dermis and is composed primarily of collagen and elastic fibers. It also allows what causes the dermis to stretch all directions. The blood vessels inside the dermis help regulate body temperature. The hypodermis is below the dermis. It's made of subcutaneous tissue that is loose connective tissue. It is primarily composed of adipose, which is fat. It technically is not considered a layer of the skin, but it does help anchor, insulate, and protect the 2 skin layers above it, which is the dermis and the epidermis. The hair follicles are normally seen within the dermis structure, and they're normally found in the stratum basale. Hair follicle is a tube that surrounds the hair root. Blood vessels help maintain body temperature. Nerves are normally found within the dermis layer, and it's what helps with sensation, function of the skin. The erector pili muscles are normally found around the hair follicles, and they are normally stimulated during cold temperatures and emotions, such as fear. So when the muscles contract, the hairs are elevated and pulled straight. This is the cause of goosebumps. And lastly, you see the fat right here, and that makes up most of the hypodermis. And that is the integumentary system.